In this lesson, we're going to build a pretty text input that looks the same across both platforms. So here's my iOS simulator and here's my Android virtual device. What we have here is much better than the default text input that comes with React Native. So let's see how we can implement this from scratch. So here in the components folder, let's add a new file. I'm going to call this app text input.js. So here we're using app as a prefix to distinguish our components from the components in React Native. This is the same convention we used earlier. Earlier we built these two components, app button and app text. So let's implement a new component. In this component, we're going to have a container. So let's add a view. As you see, I fixed the auto import issue in VS Code. I just had to restart my machine. Now, inside this view, we're going to have an icon. So let's import from @expo/vector icons. Just like before, we're going to use material community icons. So first I'm going to add an icon, and then I'm going to add a text input. Now, as I told you in the last lesson, we're going to use the text input defined in React Native. So let's import that as well. Now, let's import our style sheet module and then create our styles. So what styles do we need here? For our container, we're going to apply a background color and a border radius so it looks pretty. And for our text input, we're going to set its font family and font size. So let's add a couple of objects here. The first one is container. Here we want to set the background color to light gray. So I'm going to import our colors palette. Import colors from, we go up to config/colors. Now, we're going to set the background color to colors.light. I'm going to give this a border radius of 25 pixels so we get round corners. We should set flex direction to row. So our icon and text input are laid out horizontally. I also want to apply a width of 100%. So our container stretches to fill its container. And then I'm going to apply a padding of 15 pixels. So we have some room in our container. And finally, I'm going to apply a vertical margin. So margin vertical of 10 pixels. With this, we can separate multiple text inputs on the same screen. Now, let's set the style to styles.container. Now for our icon, we want to have a prop. So let's destructure this object. We want to be able to specify the icon from the outside. So let's set the name to icon. Now we want the icon to be optional. So we want to render this only if icon is defined. So let's wrap this in braces and use conditional rendering. Okay. Now our text input. Here we want to set the font size and font family. So let's set the style to styles.text input. Now we define this object, text input. For the font size, I'm going to use 18 pixels. And for font family, well, this one is a bit tricky. We have to cheat in this lesson. So we have to go to our app text component. Earlier, we used the platform API to set different fonts on different platforms. Now, we don't want to repeat this logic in multiple places, but we're in the middle of building a custom text input component. So let's not get distracted. For now, I'm just going to copy this expression, and then we're going to come back and refactor our code. So always try to focus on a single task. If you try to do too many things, you'll get distracted, and you may not be able to complete any of these tasks properly. So let's save the changes. Our new component is almost ready. So let's go to app.js and use it. So inside this screen component, I'm going to render an app text input. Now let's see what happens if we don't set any props here. So save the changes, and here's what we get. It looks pretty decent. What if we give it a placeholder? Placeholder to username. Nothing happens because we are not applying this prop to our text input. How do we do that? Well, back to our component. Over here, we're destructuring the props arg. We're only picking the icon property. But what about the other properties? Well, here we can use the rest operator So we can get the other props and put them inside a single object. Now, whatever those props are, we can apply them to this text input. So here we add braces and use the spread operator to spread other props. This is just basic React. If you're not familiar with this technique, you really need to go back and strengthen the fundamentals. So save the changes. Now we have our placeholder. Beautiful. Now let's set the icon. So back to app.js. I'm going to set the icon to email. Okay, we have a number of problems here. Our icon is too small, it's too dark, and it's too close to our text input. But these are really easy to fix. I'm going to set the size to 20. The color to colors.medium. And here we should apply a margin to the right side of this icon to separate it from the text input. So let's set the style to styles.icon. And then we implement the styles over here. So here we set margin right to, let's say, 10 pixels. Save, and here's what we get. It looks pretty good to me. The last thing I want to change is the color of the text that we type here. So our text is pure black. This is too strong. I want to make it a really dark gray. So let's go to our colors palette. Earlier we defined 2 shades of gray, medium and light. So let's set dark to, let's say 0C, 0C, 0C. Now back to our new component. Here are the styles for our text input. Let's set the color to colors.dark. Okay. Now our text is not pure black, it's really dark gray. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this component. In the future, we can come back and improve it if needed.